So, instructional delivery, one of the two domains that was my strength. And I agree. I mean, it was assessed as my strength, one of my strengths, and I agree with that. Um, I will say though that there has been a major shift still. Before UTEP, my instructional delivery was effective really because of my disposition. There's a way that I engage children that helps them to trust, um, that helps them to follow, um, and helps them to engage. I'm still not fully sure what that is. It's just a God-given talent. Um, but I think the shift has been we're shifting from something that is solely talent-based and something and transitioning it to something that is using that talent and developing it into excellent skill, which is a new feat. If I think about my disposition, we've talked about jazz tones and how that is the way in which I like to run a classroom, where sometimes it's a little symphonic. It sounds a little crazy, it sounds a little different, but then there are other times where um, it sounds, peaceful. And I mean that's getting more into classroom environment, but really I'm really just talking about the way that I lay down instructions to the children. There is a way in which I was taught to speak. There was a way in which I have learned to speak and to respond. I think the hardest shift that had to happen in the last 2 years was my instruction had become age appropriate. I was very used to working with high schoolers and middle schoolers, and so being um, encouraged to work with younger children, first, second, and third grade in the first year, third and fourth grade in the second year. I had to learn how to speak to 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10-year olds. It was very difficult because I kept wanting to talk to them as if they were high schoolers, as if they were middle schoolers. Also, my disposition was one that lends towards middle school and high school, and so it was hard for me to figure out how to talk to these children. It only exacerbated my conviction that all little children are evil. But obviously that has changed. I'm going to be a third grade teacher. I am a third grade teacher. And I'm very excited about that if I haven't said that already. Um, but that was the biggest thing. Age appropriate meaning, things need to be seen, heard, and written down in a lot of cases. I needed to use lower level language, right? Not dumbed down, but just different. Maybe instead of saying articulate, I will say speak. I will say. Just different ways to say the same thing. My directions had to be a lot clearer. With high schoolers, the high schoolers I had were reflective enough to sometimes figure out my directions, although sometimes I wonder if they really did understand what I was asking them to do. But with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year olds, I have to be very specific, and my economy for words has to be very high, meaning I can't be using a lot of words in order to say simple directions. Also, scripting out how things need to happen. A good example would be in installing routines and procedures. Maybe the routine and procedure of getting in line, where you first clear your desk. Next, you stand up. Then you push your chair in. And you're doing this all at a zero, right? When I call your line, you at a zero. You walk. Don't run. I can't say just get in line. You walk to your line place and you wait at a zero facing forward, hands at your sides. The fact that I have to be that clear um, is a function of me trying to be age appropriate. Now, the funny thing about that is that I've learned even about myself that I enjoy very clear instructions as well. I don't want to have any doubts about what it is I'm expected to do. And so I'm starting to think that it really isn't an age appropriate thing. It's just about how I say it, and many times the way I say it. I used to make fun of the teachers that had that little talk where they did this little da 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 da, in order to make it happen. I'm finding that I do the same thing though. So that's definitely changing. Also, something in my instructional delivery that has shifted over the last 2 years is that before I relied on me being the show, right? And that I think it's Dewey and that relationship between um, me, the student, and it, right? Um, I, you, and it. Um, I had to switch from I being the show, um, because I always was taught to make sure that you weren't the show, right? That the showstoppers, the fire starters, did not have a chance to take over the classroom, and so therefore I made me the show. I became the show out of the I, you, and it. But the thing that I've been learning and that I think I enjoy a lot more is when it is the show, right? Whether it is the content, it is the learning goal, whatever it is, but that it is the show. And that the classroom is a place where you and I interact with it together and we learn and grow as individuals throughout the process. That's a huge shift in instructional delivery. You know, before I would do song and dance, I mean, I'd have little dogs running around. I'd have all kinds of stuff that would completely kill me, frankly. Um, and I enjoy doing that, don't get me wrong. But I think that now I'm learning that there are times for that, but that they cannot be the center of the classroom. Um, and the funny thing is, I learned that when I am the show, learning is not necessarily happening. In most cases, the students that I was working with weren't actually learning anything, at least not academically. They were learning some social emotional things, but not academically. And so that became an issue for me because at the end of the day, I am a teacher. I am instructed to teach kids academically. And the social emotional is an extremely important component. Um, that I will work with the kids with, but I know that most parents that I work with are only interested in their child being a better reader, a better mathematician, and a better thinker when they leave. And I'm not saying that they don't value social emotional learning, but what I am saying is that I was not fulfilling the reason for me being hired, right? I was hired to teach these kids how to read better, how to be a better thinker, how to be a better academician, and that I wasn't doing. But I'm learning that when it becomes the show, and I am not the show, and you are not the show, when it is the show, we all have a greater propensity for learning. We all have a greater growth in our potential, um, and we all walk away better thinkers, better social emotional individuals, better social emotionally, as well as uh, just a little better overall. And so that's definitely something I've been thinking about. As far as my plans for next year, I'm already starting to, this is going into the planning part, but just making sure that I am very clear and concise with my instructions. There's definitely going to be a big goal. I will continue to work on being age appropriate because I think that will be a continual rock that I will need to be working on for a little while, for a few years before it comes around. Um, yeah, that's instructional delivery.